Thanks, Tim. We had a very full 2 days of meetings by the Board of Governors. We had a long and full discussion about the collective bargaining agreement and about revenue sharing, two key components of our league right now. And in both cases, the report was very upbeat in terms of the improvement in team operations and the competitiveness of our league. There was an update on team business, which is seeing record gate receipts, record sponsorships, and just a continued degree of sophistication by our teams in the way they do business. There was a very full update on international matters. It touched upon many continents, but particularly the extraordinary and growing influence of Asia. Adam's visit to China, Heidi Ueberroth's visit to, I think it was Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and a discussion of our exhibition games this year that are going to be in Taiwan, the Philippines, and 2 in China, as well as Rio and Europe. And there was a really good back and forth about the importance of international to our business, although it remains relatively small as a percentage. It's growing much, much faster, and it holds out great promise. And I briefed the board on my recent visit to India and the opportunities that are presented there as well. We approved the purchase of some additional interest by Dan Gilbert from his partners in the Cavaliers, and we approved Jeannie Buss as the controlling governor of the Los Angeles Lakers, reflecting her election to that post by her colleagues in the Lakers.
And paid tribute, of course.
And of course, we stopped the meeting to talk about the importance that Jerry Buss has been, the important role he has played in this league, particularly his willingness to make himself available to others, and the owners felt very strongly about commemorating that, as well as the fact that even though he was a Laker first and foremost, how he really looked out for the league's interests when it came to important issues of what was good for overall for the league. He was extraordinary in that regard. We had an update about our credit facilities that some of the business publications talk about, and the excellent credit rating that we have with the prospects for improvement. And there was a very lengthy report on TV matters, the TV market, both prospectively with respect to network television, but importantly with respect to local television contracts that have recently been renegotiated, are in the prospect of being negotiated, and the interesting markets that are opening up to the regional sports networks and us with respect to the move to TV anywhere, the desire for rights holders to have the ability to stream, and a wide variety of other topics in that area with respect to which Adam is more knowledgeable than I am. Did I leave anything out?
No.
Okay. We really had fun, as we always do, with a report on officiating. In the language of diplomacy, I'd say we had a frank and open dialogue with our owners, who it was an interesting welcome by ownership to Mike Bantam, the new head of officiating. And I would say that we'll have another lively discussion on that subject in July as well at a board meeting that we're about to notice. And a presentation covered a variety of things, including the data inputs that we're now collecting with respect to calls that we've been doing for over 7 years, the extensive recruiting efforts that we're undertaking, and a lot of other things that, including some questioning about whether wasn't there anything we could do about the tenor of certain home team reporting on regional sports networks by which fans get their impression of the NBA. And basically, we told the owners that, that we explained what a homer is, and we weren't talking about baseball, and that sells. And that's what some of the networks are telling their announcers, and that has, in its collectivity, builds a certain impression. But we're all over it, and we're working on it. And then we had a report of the competition committee, or not the committee, but what it's thinking of, because we're going to have a June meeting, together with a report on competition and the statistics having to do with the increase of 3-point shots in our game. For better or for worse, draw your own impression, because we don't have an impression. But, when our teams are hot, it's a thing of beauty. And when they're not, they can go 3 for 41. And it's an interesting discussion. And it's also interesting to note the way certain teams are now defending the 3, giving up the mid-range shot, and the statistical variances that come into play. And that's relevant because many of our teams, and soon to be all, are so focused on analytics and the percentages that go with taking shots and various, quote, formations, that we just think it's interesting. It wasn't a presentation for purposes of a result, just as an observation to let our teams know where the game is going. I think the report was that we have a dozen teams that take 20 or more threes a game this year. And if you went back to 2001, there were none. So it's been a complete progression, and understandably based upon the proficiency of our players and the statistical result of being able to hit threes at something approaching 35%. So it's an interesting note. Well, in addition, we'll be meeting with the competition committee in June to talk about some additional potential uses of instant replay, and I guess, small things, clear path to the basket fouls, and maybe even ways in which the game could be speeded up. But the meeting was, in my view, good and particularly noteworthy for the amount of time that was spent on discussing the game. And nobody left, which is a big sign of progress. I think what we tried to do is we've improved lunch, so it tends to keep our owners there longer. There was a discussion of security, of what we're doing, what we will continue to do. And in that connection, there was a presentation by Steve Pagliuca, who is the governor from the Celtics, about, it's called the One Fund, which has been established by the businesses of Boston, at which the Celtics are taking a leadership role, and which the NBA is making a significant contribution to. And everybody was focused on what's going on in Boston, what has gone on in Boston, and at this point, almost the seeming irrelevance of sports in light of the great human suffering and the tragedies that we're all glued to the television about. But we're touched by the outpouring of support for all of the people of Boston. We were actually briefed on the president's attendance at the Mass yesterday, or at the church yesterday. And and what we could